Our story begins with a pink-haired girl upset to see the store charging $3 million for a slime. She complains to the seller, saying that a common slime wasn't worth more than $3,000. But Lu Yu just smiles confidently and warns her that this wasn't just any little monster. The young man points to the small blue creature and guarantees that the price would leave the customer satisfied. The girl gets annoyed, saying the pet was weak and that with that money she could buy something much better. Lu Yu calmly closes his eyes and admits she was right to think that way. Then he smirks and claims his pet was billions of times stronger than common slimes. He explains that the slime was a mutant and could break its limits until it became a true monarch. Suspicious, the customer steps closer and asks why she should believe that story. The seller smiles again and says she would only find out the truth if she decided to test it. At that moment, a blonde woman in high heels enters the store mocking the young master who was kicked out of the Lu family. The newcomer pretends to apologize while maliciously reminding him that he had already been abandoned by his family. Lu Yu is surprised to recognize Bai Yue and asks what she was doing there. The blonde mocks him, saying she only came to see how her ex-boyfriend with no talent for taming beasts was doing. The customer gets confused upon learning he ran a pet shop even without having any gift. Lu Yu looks at her calmly and states that this didn't hinder his sales at all. The ex-girlfriend tries to humiliate him, saying someone without talent should accept an ordinary life. Hearing that, the customer comments that the woman looked like a classic anime villain. Lu Yu smiles at the girl and asks her not to stoop to the level of such bitter people. Furious, the blonde calls him a scammer while the customer decides to test if he was lying. The pink-haired girl takes a silver-tier pet food and gives it to the little blue slime to eat. Instantly, the little creature begins to glow as it absorbs the entire special item. Blue arrows appear around the slime, showing its level was rising rapidly. The customer smiles excitedly as she sees its potential jump from rank 5 to 9 and even gain a skill. The ex-girlfriend widens her eyes in shock, saying an evolution like that was impossible. Then the buyer faces the blonde and says she was lucky not to believe her nonsense. Lu Yu smiles when the girl says she brought her own pet food and therefore wouldn't pay any extra fees. She flashes a huge smile holding a gold card and announces she will pay with credit. A virtual girl appears on the panel, congratulating him on his first sale and unlocking an SSS rank talent. Lu Yu sits on the floor surrounded by a blue aura while the system explains the bonuses of the new pets. Shortly after, a red aura surrounds his body, and he celebrates finally getting his gift back. A sad memory surfaces showing a large dark mansion on a rainy night 12 years ago. Back then, the little orphan was lying on the floor, scared, asking what his adoptive aunt was doing. The woman replies with a cruel smile, asking if that wasn't obvious to him yet. She reveals she only adopted him because he possessed a rare S-rank dragon-type talent origin. Then, the woman holds the child's head and asks if he really thought his parents passed away by accident. The villainess uses dark magic to steal his powers and says that would make her son stronger. The boy cries out in pain as the floor freezes and his energy is brutally ripped away. After finishing, the woman steps on the hurt boy with cowardly cruelty. She smiles victoriously, saying he would now live forever as a complete nobody. Back in the present, Lu Yu vents that he believed he would spend his entire life as a failure. But everything changed on his 18th birthday when the mythical system finally awakened. He realized that selling pets could generate resources and rewards capable of making him much stronger. Since he already owned a store, completing sales missions didn't seem impossible. So the young man clenches his fists and promises to return double all the humiliation he suffered in the past. Meanwhile, the ex-girlfriend tries to convince the customer that everything was just a lie. But Lu Yu loses his patience and warns her that he has endured her taunts for far too long. Bai Yue steps back, scared, and threatens to call the police if he dares to touch her. The seller just gives a cold smile and tells the blonde to leave his store immediately. She refuses and says she would buy another mutant if he could prove they were real. At that moment, the system warns him that he was still one sale short that week to unlock a reward. Lu Yu decides to take the chance and creates a blue sphere, saying he would give her an opportunity. The image of a majestic skeleton with a crown and cloak appears in the air like an emperor of the fallen. However, the real creature was just a confused little skeleton wearing tiny red boots. The blonde gets angry and shouts that she has a B-rank gift and wouldn't accept being tricked by that garbage. Lu Yu holds the glass jar with the little monster and smilingly reaffirms that he was a true emperor. But she points indignantly at the little creature, asking where that minion seemed to have royal lineage. The young man chuckles confidently and says the hidden talent of that creature defied the rules of the world. He explains that by defeating enemies, the little monster could evolve limitlessly until it became a deity. The ex-girlfriend crosses her arms and tells him to stop making up stories about such an absurd pet. The pink-haired customer complains that the woman asked for another product but doubted it when it appeared. Lu Yu asks her to ignore it because not everyone can recognize a good thing. Annoyed, the blonde grabs her phone and threatens to call a professional to prove it was a scam. She calls a manager named Yang and asks him to come to the pet store near the west gate of the school. Shortly after, a large dark truck parks right in front of Lu Yu's establishment. A man with glasses walks in holding an aquarium and is shocked to see the incredible potential of the slime. The blue creature rests in the customer's hands while its impressive data is confirmed by the expert. At that moment, the ex-girlfriend smiles and waves to get the newcomer's attention. The man apologizes for the distraction and shows the ordered beast, asking if she wanted to make the contract. But the blonde refuses for now and asks him to first analyze the skeleton inside the jar. She points to the fire lizard inside the glass cube and brags, saying that was a real high-level pet. However, the expert ignores her words and fixes his eyes on the tiny skeleton in boots. Sensing something strange, the man activates his data eye and begins to investigate the creature more closely. He is shocked to realize the skeleton also possessed infinite growth through battles. The expert quickly turns around and asks if the skeleton was for sale, saying he would pay any price. The blonde is outraged and questions why an experienced person would pay $3 million for a level 1 monster. The man adjusts his glasses and states that his data eye never fails to identify a future emperor. Hearing that, the villainess widens her eyes, realizing the little pet really was a mutant. The customer in pink laughs, saying such a handsome seller would never lie, but the blonde tells her to shut up. Liu breaks a cold sweat and warns that the slime also had infinite growth and would soon surpass tamers of the same level. The tiny blue creature glows in the water, revealing the image of a powerful girl made of elemental energy. The expert bows, asking to buy the little monster, while Liu charges only $3 million. The buyer goes into shock because that price was practically a steal for a legendary creature. He hands over the card thanking him for his kindness, and Liu smiles, saying he was a very polite customer. The ex-girlfriend furiously points her finger, saying she was scammed, but the young man reminds her she looked down on everything first. Liu casually cleans his ear without caring, while the blonde demands he bring out another mutant monster. Then the seller turns cold and warns her there were no more mutant pets and she wouldn't buy anything there. The woman yells, calling him a talentless loser, and asks where all that arrogance came from. At that instant, a red, shadowy aura erupts from Liu, revealing his second awakening. The expert steps back in fear upon feeling that pressure and calculates that it was at least rank A. The customer realizes the aura surpassed rank A and deduces he had reached rank S. The ex-girlfriend loses her strength and falls to the floor, trembling before that overwhelming pressure. She is in shock, asking how someone achieved a second awakening and on top of that an S-rank gift. Liu smiles confidently and says nothing is impossible in the world of beast taming. Hearing this, the blonde changes her attitude and pretends to be sweet, saying he finally got his talents back. Then she stands up, full of charm, and offers him a new chance to win her heart back. But Liu smiles with contempt, saying he had absolutely no interest and tells her to leave. Rejected, the woman gets furious and threatens him, saying he should wait for her payback. After the villainess leaves, Liu apologizes to the customer and the expert, announcing the store would close for the day. At that moment, the pink-haired girl excitedly raises her phone, asking for the handsome manager's contact info. The man with glasses also takes out his phone and asks to exchange numbers with the store owner. Liu thinks keeping in touch with that student could attract many customers in the future. He also realizes that even though the researcher is in the same field, they could form a good partnership. With his eyes shining with happiness, the young man celebrates not having to fear failing missions anymore. Then he smiles friendly and shows his phone screen for both of them to scan his code. Shortly after, everyone says their goodbyes and the large metal door begins to lower, closing the shop. Liu stretches tiredly while the virtual assistant congratulates him and offers to open the store tab. Excited, the young man clenches his fists and tells the system to show all the new items available. He looks confused at the blue screen, thinking there were few options, but the assistant explains they were free mascots. Liu comments that free things are rarely good and asks to see the paid monsters. The holographic screen scrolls quickly, showing a huge variety of incredible beasts for sale. The shopkeeper analyzes the options and rejects the first mascots for being ugly or not matching his style. The system suggests a huge three-headed dog, but Liu refuses because he was bitten by one in his childhood. The assistant smiles and points out 3 shadow beasts that match the owner very well. However, Liu ignores everything and focuses his attention on the Grand Dragon class attribute. Without hesitation, he buys the World Destroyer Demonic Dragon Hatchling, spending his last points. A gigantic beast appears and Liu gets startled, asking how that could be a hatchling. The shadow monster shows off glowing red scales and huge wings with absurd stats. The protagonist is impressed to see that the pet's initial potential was already at level 10 Overlord. A pyramid shows the classifications, explaining that potential defines the strength limit of each creature. Liu notes that the 3 strongest people in the country had Overlord pets, and his first mascot was already close to that. The virtual assistant approaches with a smile and asks if he was satisfied with his new beast. The young man clenches his fists excitedly and states he was fully satisfied, deciding to make the contract. Then he reaches out and creates a glowing magic circle to connect with the demonic dragon. The system girl confirms the contract and says he could now use his talent to strengthen the pet. Liu activates the shadow infusion while the great beast roars, receiving a massive charge of energy. An intense light envelops the monster, and an even larger shadow emerges behind it during its growth. The system congratulates Lu Yu for successfully evolving the mascot to level 10. However, he looks at his own hand and asks why the monster couldn't break past that limit. The assistant explains that his tamer space was still weak, and Lu Yu understands he needs to level up fast. Next, he asks if he could shrink the beast's size, and the girl confirms it only took a mental command. The enormous monster shrinks quickly and turns into a small, cute version in a matter of seconds. Lu Yu smiles holding the little dragon and says that size was much more convenient. Far away in the dorm, the pink-haired customer arrives excitedly, calling her friend to see her new mascot. The blue-haired girl gets scared seeing the slime and asks her to put it away before Chu Ying shows up. But it was too late, as an arrogant blonde walks down the stairs, saying she had already seen the little monster. The newcomer glares at both of them, reminding them that decorative pets weren't allowed in the room. The blue-haired girl tries to defend her friend, saying she didn't break the rule on purpose. But the slime's owner clenches her fists and asserts she didn't break any rules because that pet wasn't a decoration. Chu Ying mockingly crosses her arms and asks if she really planned to adopt that useless slime. A classmate comments that someone of rank A would never make the dumb mistake of taming a creature like that. The pet owner hugs the slime and retorts, saying it was a mutant mascot that grew by devouring resources. The blonde scolds her, saying that was a lie because slimes only reached level 3. The girl in pink extends her arm and warns she already made the contract and her little monster reached level 5. Her friends ask her to stop being silly and wonder if she fell for some scam. Tired of the criticism, Nianian places the slime on the table and announces she will prove the truth. She stares at the bully and reminds her she spent a fortune feeding her steel wolf. Chu Ying summons her large, fierce wolf and arrogantly replies that it had already reached level 9. Then Nianian summons several valuable crystals and tells everyone to pay attention to what would happen. The little slime glows happily and begins to suck up all the floating crystals at once. The blonde mocks her, saying anyone knows how to waste resources, but the classmate is in shock. The little blue monster glows brightly and creates an energy whirlpool while devouring the materials. With this, the slime breaks its limit and rapidly levels up from level 5 to level 10. The blue-haired girl covers her mouth, unable to believe a simple slime reached that level. Chu Ying widens her eyes indignantly and refuses to accept what she was seeing. Nianian smiles confidently and warns they should keep watching because the evolution wasn't over yet. The mascot releases a strong light and its potential rises to the powerful Starry Sky classification. The blonde grits her teeth, saying it was impossible for a piece of trash like that to have such high potential. Then she clenches her fists, trembling with anger at being surpassed by a creature she despised. Furious, the student points her finger and challenges her roommate to a battle outside. Once in the courtyard, Chu Ying reaches out and orders her steel wolf to show all its endurance. The dark animal roars fiercely and charges at the little slime, covered in a red aura. But the slime counterattacks with a powerful water spear, showing a transcendent skill. The wolf's owner starts sweating cold, not understanding how that was possible. Next, the arrogant girl falls to her knees, defeated upon seeing her monster lose. Nianian looks down at her and says that was the mutant mascot she despised so much. Then the pink-haired young woman turns her back and announces she would forgive the offense since they shared the same room. The blue-haired classmate runs after her, begging to know where she bought that beast. The next day, the sun lights up the city streets, marking another quiet morning in the commercial district. A red-haired boy enters Lu Yu's store wearing elegant clothes and wonders since when there was another business there. He sees a little dragon sleeping on the counter and thinks it would be the perfect gift for his little sister. The newcomer points at the rare black mascot and asks the owner what the price of that beast was. He brags about having a lot of money, but Lu Yu gently explains that it was his personal mascot. The seller takes a deep breath and calmly reinforces that the little monster was really not for sale. However, the redhead frowns, thinking the owner refused his offer out of pure stubbornness. So the spoiled boy summons a black crow and orders his beast to teach the seller a lesson. Lu Yu watches the commotion fearlessly and just calls that arrogant customer an idiot. At that moment, the little dragon opens its eyes and releases a terrifying aura upon sensing the threat. The black crow backs away frightened in mid-air, feeling the weight of that intimidation. With that, the bird falls face first onto the floor, crushed by the little dragon's presence before even attacking. The red-haired boy also suffers the impact and gets hurt just from that pressure. He clutches his chest indignantly, realizing his powerful crow lost to a single look. Then the evader notices that aura belonged to a demonic dragon, something not even the Lu family possessed. Overcome with fear, the injured young man understands the danger and decides to flee out of there as fast as possible. He turns his back in a panic and runs out of the store, leaving Lu Yu standing behind the counter. The seller rests his face on his hand and comments, bored, that the quick escape ruined all the fun. Sometime later, the scene shifts to the facade of a large private hospital lit by the sun. The arrogant customer walks through the lobby holding a medical bill for $5 million. He complains that a simple glare from that mascot made him spend a fortune at the hospital. Shortly after, he bumps into someone and curses at the person without realizing who was in front of him. The man in the white suit asks who he was cursing at and reveals himself to be Luo Tianyan. The spoiled boy recognizes his older brother and asks what he was doing in that hospital. Tianyan stares at the younger one and says he came to find out who made the Luo family lose face. The Rehead panics and asks his brother to let it go because they shouldn't provoke that man. Hearing this, Tianyan turns serious and asks if there really was someone the Luo family couldn't take on. The boy gulps and explains that the store owner had a contract with a demonic dragon beast. With this revelation, Tianyan widens his eyes, completely surprised to hear about a dragon. The older brother thinks for a moment and says a tamer like that hadn't appeared in many years. Then he quickly composes himself and orders the younger one to take him to meet that guy. The redhead gets worried and warns that not even his older brother would be a match for that monster. At that moment, Tianyan smacks his brother's head and calls him an idiot, saying they were only going to apologize. The spoiled boy holds his head awkwardly and agrees his superior would never be as dumb as him. The two walk together while the man in white comments that the Lu family would never hide a dragon. However, he concludes the store owner must have some connection to them to tame such a rare beast. The duo arrives back at the commercial street, and the younger brother points to the mythical pet store. Lu Yu sees the two approaching and comments that the loser called for backup for being too weak. But before any trouble, the older brother grabs the redhead by the collar quite forcefully. Tianyan forces the younger one to bow and apologizes on behalf of the family for all the trouble. The man in white explains the boy was blind to offend him and asks for forgiveness, taking a gift from his pocket. He shows a shiny stone and reveals it to be a platinum, tier spatial taming crystal. Lu Yu's eyes sparkle seeing that rare material and wonders who that rich young man was. He smiles excitedly looking at the hologram because he exactly needed to expand his tamer space. Tianyan places the jewel on the counter and says it was just a small misunderstanding. Then the man notices from Lu Yu's aura that he had awakened a new space for beasts. The noble customer praises his vision and reveals he reached the starry sky level of the fire type. At that, Lu Yu puts an arm around the preppy guy and says by coincidence he had a perfect flame chicken right there. The shopkeeper points to a cute little chicken overalls inside the cage and says it only costs 3 million. The little orange-beaked bird sleeps peacefully while the absurd price flashes on the screen. Tianyan sighs, maintaining his manners, and agrees to buy the pet since the seller recommended it so highly. But the red-haired boy whispers that they shouldn't waste money like that. Lu Yu frowns and asks if the two thought he was trying to scam them. The man in white steps back, sweating cold, and admits he still hasn't understood the true value of that chicken. Then the shopkeeper smiles confidently and says he only offered the mascot because he noticed their sincerity. He snaps his fingers and the bird floats in flames as he explains it can refine fire to evolve. Tianyan widens his blue eyes, completely shocked by that revelation. With his heart racing, the customer asks permission to test if that was really true. He reaches out and summons an extremely cold blue flame to feed the little creature. The young man launches the power through the air and is impressed to see the chick shows no fear. The little bird opens its beak and sucks up all the fiery energy as if it were a simple snack. A bright light takes over the store, and the silhouette of a bluish phoenix appears behind the cage. Tianyan steps back amazed and claims that wasn't a chicken but a future emperor of flames. Then the two brothers bow deeply, thanking him for the blessing and pledging loyalty. But Lu Yu waves dismissively and says it was just a mascot, no need for so much exaggeration. The preppy guy gathers courage and asks if he had any connection to the powerful Lu family. Hearing that name, Lu Yu's expression immediately darkens and his look becomes gloomy. He turns his face coldly and replies he no longer has any ties with those people. Tianyan senses the tension in the air and understands the seller holds a deep grudge against that clan. Then the two brothers say their respectful goodbyes and leave the quiet store once again. With everything settled, Lu Yu goes back to smiling, holding the new platinum jewel to test his expansion. He uses the crystal and the environment starts to glow, transforming into a huge virtual training space. Blue light dominates the scene, announcing that the tamer space limit was successfully broken. The system informs that the area grew to 100,000 square meters and reached Transcendent Level 1. Lu Yu realizes that using such a rare crystal just to level up was a pretty extravagant choice. Then he looks at his huge shadow mascot and announces it was now the beast's turn to evolve. The dragon lets out a powerful roar and releases an immense light throughout the environment. Several blue screens confirm the monster reached the transcendent level and learned deadly skills. The virtual assistant appears smiling and explains he can now devour dragons to steal their powers. The massive scaly monster roars again, showing off all its new strength. Lu Yu smiles proudly and says soon his partner will be able to eat plenty of dragon meat. Meanwhile, time passes and the morning sun illuminates the empty street outside the store. In front of the magic shop, there is a cart full of materials waiting on the sidewalk. Lu Yu relaxes in his chair holding the little dragon while calling to check on the slime's evolution. The customer answers excitedly and shares that the little creature reached level 10 with starry sky potential. She also mentions the expert closed his own store to train the skeleton, and Lu Yu finds it weird. The scene shifts to an ordinary chicken flapping its wings desperately, trying to escape danger. The bespectacled researcher smiles proudly as he watches his transcendent rank 3 little skeleton taking down birds. The workers at the processing facility are shocked to see the boy defeat thousands of chickens in 2 days. The guy in a tie approaches smiling and announces that would be his last day at that slaughtering plant. A worker sighs in relief, thinking the tamer finally gave up wasting his talent. But the expert raises a large shining cleaver and excitedly says he's now going to process pigs. He explains that with the certificate from the new facility, he'll have access to higher-level areas. The man comments that there are dangerous beasts and transcendent creatures waiting to be taken down. A dark aura appears behind him as he imagines his mascot reaching the starry sky level. Back at the store, Luyu holds his phone, sweating cold, thinking that method was too overpowered. He understands the facility compensates for the quality of the fights with a massive amount of takedowns. Luyu leans back in his chair, thinking that at this rate, his partner might become a Radiant Sun Tamer. The researcher's messages show the skeleton's level and say he recommended a customer. Luyu praises his ally since he really needed new customers at that moment. Soon, the rich preppy guy sends a message saying he will bring his little sister to buy a pet. With the deal set, the young master calmly drinks his coffee while petting the little dragon. Luyu smiles at the little dragon and promises to soon expand the space for it to keep evolving. At that moment, an elegant man with red hair walks arrogantly between the cages in the store. Luyu walks calmly with his beast beside him and notices business seemed to be going well. The manager from the Jiang family looks at everything with contempt, wondering what that small place could possibly have. The red-haired man says a partner recommended the store, claiming the mascots there were great. Luyu closes his eyes with a friendly smile and replies that he only works with high-level creatures. But the visitor gets annoyed, finding it arrogant to hear that in such a small shop. With that unprovoked insult, Luyu gives an awkward laugh, trying to keep his manners. The man in the tie interrupts mockingly and demands to see the rare monsters of that place right away. Luyu raises his hand without losing his posture and activates the system to show his best options. A light reveals a cage with a small green goblin, and the seller asks if that pleased the customer. Luyu starts explaining the incredible abilities of that little greenish warrior. But the man points furiously and accuses the store owner of trying to make him look like an idiot with that garbage. The man in the tie says he would recommend the store to the Jiang family if the place had something truly good. He acts with superiority, saying he gave a valuable chance but the young man was useless. The visitor smiles arrogantly and threatens that the store would close its doors in 3 days. Hearing the threat, Luyu frowns and completely loses his patience with that guy. At that moment, elegant footsteps echo down the hallway, and a mysterious voice repeats the Jiang family's name. A beautiful girl with tied-up red hair enters the store, catching everyone's attention. She appears accompanied by Tianyan, who walks in with his hands in his pockets, commenting on their prestige. The arrogant manager steps back sweating cold as he recognizes the heirs of the Luo family. His face contorts with fear upon realizing that store might have the support of that nobility. He gulps, knowing the Jiang family's business depends on the Luo family, and realizes the mistake he made. The two noble siblings walk right past him, completely ignoring his presence. Chaiting gives a respectful bow and greets Luyu, calling him superior. The red-haired girl blushes looking at the manager and comments that he was handsome and looked quite young. The man in the tie goes into shock, seeing someone so important treat an ordinary boy with such honor. But Tianyan turns his face furiously and tells the man to shut his mouth without permission to speak. The arrogant guy falls to his knees, sweating cold, understanding he offended someone dangerous. Ignoring the man on the floor, Tianyan introduces his little sister, and she excitedly asks to be called by her name. Luyu smiles friendly and calmly agrees to the young noble's request. Then the shopkeeper thinks he needs to make a profit soon to fund his own mascot's advancement. Tianyan notices his thoughtful expression and asks if he was upset about not selling the little monster. To everyone's surprise, the elegant young man states he will buy the little goblin himself. His little sister is shocked and asks why he would close a deal without knowing the creature's details. But Tianyan answers he trusts the veteran blindly, leaving Luyu quite surprised. Because of this, the shopkeeper decides to better present the little monster since the customer is willing to pay. He explains that the little green being increases its strength and aptitude by generating new descendants. Luyu goes on to say that the stronger it gets, the higher the chance of creating a powerful offspring. With this endless cycle of reproduction, the beast owner would soon have an extremely strong breed. From afar, the fearful manager goes into shock, realizing the divine creature he just lost out on. At that moment, the noble hair bows eagerly and begs Luyu to sell the treasure to the Luo family. Tianyan knows the great rival families depend on their giant beasts to maintain power. But since the goblin's reproduction compares to dragons, he sees the family's rise coming. Hearing it all, Luyu simply asks calmly if it really matters who he sells to. He accepts the deal, but warns that some tamer needs to make the contract immediately. The little redhead cries in disgust, imagining a beauty like her forming a duo with such an ugly bug. However, the older brother raises his hand and says he already has the perfect person for the contract. He explains the chosen one is the illegitimate son of the former leader, whose mother was eliminated by the main wife. Tianyan says he gave the boy a chance to return to the family, and that's why he would never betray him. Meanwhile, the terrified manager panics, realizing he heard a deadly secret. The man in the tie sweats cold and understands that hearing that so openly could mean his end. Then Tianyan turns his face slowly and shoots a threatening glare toward the meddlesome guy. Trying to save his own skin, the manager closes his eyes and pretends to have suddenly gone blind. The cowardly man also pretends to be deaf while Tianyan asks if he should finish him off. Faced with that pathetic act, the hare tells the manager to consider today a lesson. He smiles darkly and tells the guy to watch his tongue if he doesn't want to suffer consequences. Terrified, the manager covers his mouth right away and swears from that day on he will be mute. Lu Yu finds it funny seeing how quickly the man reacted to save his own life. Then the little noble gets back to the topic and asks what her mascot will be since the goblin already has an owner. Pouting, the little girl crosses her arms and demands a powerful pet for herself as well. Her brother tries to calm her, saying the veteran will get an even better mascot than that goblin. The girl's eyes sparkle, imagining there are even stronger monsters in that store. She quickly turns to the seller and calls him in a sweet way to get his attention. She steps closer with a sweet smile and asks if there was any creature perfect for her profile. Showing her powers, she reveals she has a talent for taming ice souls and asks for a very strong pet. Hearing that, Lu Yu flashes a confident smile and says he can easily fulfill that wish. Then he raises his hand, activating the system, and guarantees he has something perfect for that tamer. A small fox with blue fur appears inside a bronze cage and enchants the young woman. The little redhead almost jumps with joy and asks if the mascot could also refine exotic ice. Lu Yu praises her intelligence and confirms the fox can absorb that material to get stronger. Excited, the hare creates a sphere of icy energy in her hand and calls the creature for a test. She brings the sphere close to the golden bars, and the little monster swallows it all in a second. The fox refines the ice soul's power, and its fur gains a beautiful light blue glow. Thrilled, the girl asks the price, saying she would pay 10 or even 100 million for it. Keeping his cool, Lu Yu answers with a smile that the price was the same as before. The young man in the suit transfers 6 million in bows, thanking him for taking care of the Luo family. When saying goodbye to the customers, Lu Yu just waves humbly, saying they will always be welcome. Suddenly, the little black dragon appears on the counter and lets out a warning roar looking at the street. The noble siblings leave while Lu Yu notices his mascot sense something strange outside. Outside, a sinister wind begins to blow the leaves and shake the store's door. Focused, the merchant clearly feels the oppressive aura of a giant dragon. With a dark smile, he wonders if the rival family finally decided to act from the shadows. Far away, the scene shifts to a massive, luxurious mansion surrounded by flowered gardens. On the lawn rests a draconic creature with red scales calmly sunbathing. On the porch, a man in a suit approaches the elegant matriarch, asking if she called for him. Sipping her tea, the woman reminds him she ordered to keep a close watch on that little rascal. She demands to know about the money hidden by the boy's parents, while the lackey just listens. Slamming her cup on the table, the posh woman shows irritation at so much time passing without new clues. The subordinate kneels and says he observed a new move from the shopkeeper, so she tells him to speak. The lackey reports that Lu Yu awakened his talent again and formed a contract with a black dragon. Hearing this, the posh woman slams her hams on the table and stands up, completely shocked. She questions how the boy went back to taming beasts if his talent had been extracted in the past. With an evil smile, the noble decides Lu Yu cannot remain alive. The man in the suit kneels before the boss and states he perfectly understood the new order. Meanwhile, at the store, the system notifies that Lu Yu sold 5 beasts and unlocked an achievement. The virtual girl blinks excitedly, revealing the reward is a random SSS rank talent. A holographic panel appears before the young man, asking if he wants to claim the new power. Lu Yu smiles excitedly, imagining he will receive a second celestial talent. Without thinking twice, he taps the glowing button to receive the new skill. A purple aura sets his body ablaze as the system announces the god, vanquishing fire. The pressure is so strong that the two noble siblings fall to their knees, completely terrified. Sweating cold, Tiang deduces Lu Yu just awakened a terrifying fire talent. But he quickly realizes a simple S-rank skill would never have such an overwhelming aura. Surrounded by purple flames, Lu Yu looks confused at the customers, wondering why they knelt down. The little redhead trembles on the floor, hugging the cage, while her brother tries to recover from the scare. Hiding his terror, Tianyan stands up, saying his legs just got weak out of nowhere. Then he decides to leave and politely warns that it's getting late to bother the veteran. However, the little girl blushes and sweetly confesses she wanted to stay longer with the manager. Out of patience, Tianyan pulls his little sister by the hand and tells her to go home with him. Sometime later, night falls, leaving only the humble facade of the store illuminated. A lackey riding a huge green dragon arrives at the spot and shouts for Lu Yu to accept his end. With his little mascot by his side, Lu Yu steps out of the store, saying the visitor entered the underworld all by himself. In the sky, the winged beast exudes power, while the enemy says he was merciful for letting him live. Lu Yu smiles menacingly and confesses he only survived this long to get payback on all of them. At that moment, the story flashes back to the past, showing the cloudy sky over the family mansion. We see little Luyu crying on his knees, begging for help to save his talent origin. But that same lackey in the suit delivers a violent kick and sends the boy flying. Coldly, the attacker says it was an honor to sacrifice his power to benefit the young master. The boy tries to escape by crawling on the floor while desperately denying that cruel fate. The poor boy gets stomped on the back and falls flat on his face, unable to escape. Then the wicked woman sips tea calmly and asks if she gave permission for the boy to leave. Crying on the ground, little Luyu says that talent belongs to him and no one should steal it. But the lackey just stumps the ground and replies that decision wasn't up to the boy. With a wicked smile, the posh woman orders the subordinate to start the process cleanly. The man in the suit flashes a scary smile and affirms he understood the boss's order. Then he lifts his shoe and stomps hard on the boy's leg, making the child scream. In tears, little Luyu begs the man to end that suffering right away. Ignoring his cries, the attacker steps on the child's hand, complaining that it was getting annoying. Far away, the boy's screams echo through the mansion while the night covers that cruelty. Back in the present, the arrogant man mocks Luyu and asks what advantage he gained by awakening his powers. The lackey warns he will have to face the entire family, but Luyu asks who they think they are. The guy in the suit gets annoyed and asks how a simple nobody dares to speak so loudly to him. To protect its owner, the little black dragon steps forward and lets out a roar full of fury. But the enemy just smiles mockingly, finding it funny an ordinary boy tamed that creature. He continues mocking, saying the little monster seems to have been forced to fight too early. Full of confidence, the coward claims he wouldn't withstand an attack from his Gale dragon. Wasting no time, the lackey points forward and orders his beast to launch a devastating hurricane. The winged monster obeys and spits a sharp gust of wind toward the young merchant. Even so, Luyu remains calm with his hands in his pockets as the dust blows all around. The green attack cuts through the air quickly, threatening to destroy everything in its path. The man with glasses smiles confidently, saying that beast was at most level 10. However, the tiny black beast transforms into a massive metallic dragon and blocks the attack. Surrounded by a red aura, Luyu stands firm while his beast faces the enemy. With glowing eyes, the young man stares at his attacker from the past and asks if that was all. The monstrous dragon roars behind its owner, and Luyu concludes the opponent chose to perish right there. The creature spreads its wings, scattering energy and displaying terrifying strength. The coward who was previously arrogant now trembles with fear, not understanding what monster that was. Desperate, he tries to convince himself his starry sky lizard couldn't lose. But Luyu sneers, saying that green wyvern wouldn't even serve as a snack for his mascot. Then the young man reaches out and activates an ability called Dragon Domain. An absurd energy spreads across the battlefield, covering both beasts. The man in the suit panics and wonders how Luyu possessed such a powerful domain. He realizes that magic only belongs to the rarest and most dangerous beasts in the world. Smiling darkly, Luyu confirms his mascot belongs exactly to that species. With hatred in his eyes, he reveals his monster feeds on the dragons of that family. Soon the creature fires a devastating red laser at the green lizard. A colossal explosion lights up the sky while the lackey watches everything paralyzed. The rays tear through the enemy beast without mercy, and the attacker himself takes the impact. Powerless, the greenish mascot plummets from the sky and its owner falls shortly after. The enemy monster crashes to the ground, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Hurt on the ground, the coward wonders how he could lose while Luyu approaches. Desperate, the man with glasses tries to crawl away to save his own life. But Luyu stomps hard on his hand and makes the guy scream in pain. With a threatening smile, he asks how it feels to be humiliated by a nobody. The young man presses his shoe down even harder and reveals he waited years for that moment. Sweating cold, the coward begs for mercy and asks him to remember their childhood fondness. With a cold glare, Luyu just scoffs, asking if that really was care. Pulling the attacker's hair, the young man tells him to take a good look at what will happen. The armored dragon sinks its teeth into the green lizard's neck, giving no chance to defend. Next, the beast tosses the prey into the air and swallows the enemy in one gulp. After the feast, the dragon lets out a mighty roar, displaying its sovereignty. Seeing the scene, the man in the suit starts crying over the loss of his partner. Completely broken, the lackey bangs his head on the floor and promises to do anything. Observing that humiliation, Luyu raises an eyebrow and asks if that was true. However, his eyes glow intensely without showing any mercy. Coldly, the young man decrees the guy's defeat and tells him to repent in the underworld. The grand dragon behind Luyu charges a destructive aura in its giant paw. The colossal claw covers the vision of the lackey, who falls into despair in his final seconds. A massive hole opens in the street, ending the grudge against that man once and for all. Luyu smiles proudly and praises his world destroyer demon dragon's good work. At that moment, the system girl appears happy, congratulating the young man on his victory. The assistant points her finger and hands over a red star tier resource reward. Luyu observes the demonic heart, which holds the perceptions of a dark lord. That crystal can evolve a dark skill straight to the red star class. Floating in the air, the blue girl catches his attention, saying there was still another surprise. Excitedly, she tells him he earned 900 points and can already tame his second beast. Hearing this, Lu Yu is surprised and thinks about which partner would be ideal for the future. Then he manifests the purple fire in his hand and concludes he should focus on his new power. With a confident smile, the young man states he has already made his decision. Wasting no time, he touches the holographic panel and confirms his grand reward. A vortex of purple energy appears in the street, summoning the legendary Emperor Bird. A divine bird appears, flapping its wings with a terrifying Holy Spirit level 10 potential. Analyzing the panel, Lu Yu sees the bird possesses several mortal flame skills. Enchanted by his new beast, he smiles and praises that overwhelming magical aura. The bird shows off its fiery charm, proving the Holy Spirit rank is on another level. Lu Yu remembers that even the golden dragon guarding the country is only at Holy Spirit 1. He thinks that in the whole world, only 6 divine beasts have reached that level. Petting the bird's beak, he promises that one day it will surpass the nation's guardian. Then Lu Yu extends his hand and activates a purple magic circle to form a contract with the beast. Bathed in energy, the bird lets out a joyful chirp and agrees to become the young man's partner. Remembering an important detail, the tamer touches it and activates a spell to shrink its size. Now looking like a fluffy little ball, the tiny bird lands on its owner's shoulder. Smiling gently, Lu Yu says that with his 2 beasts, payback is getting closer and closer. However, the huge black dragon turns its head, pouting, making the young man try to comfort the big guy. Sweating cold, Lu Yu asks it not to get jealous over the cute bird. To calm it down, the young man promises to evolve the lizard as soon as he sells the last beast of the week. The little ball of feathers chirps curiously on the master's shoulder, not understanding the situation. Seeing the dragon's sadness, the bird takes flight and approaches it to help. It rubs its little face against the big guy's scales, showing they are now a family. The fearsome lizard looks at its new ally with great curiosity. Then an arrow of love strikes its heart and is completely charmed. With rosy cheeks, the giant monster surrenders to the cuteness of the little feather ball. Lu Yu finds the scene funny and comments that beauty really does stray dragons from their path. After that, the shopkeeper offers the glowing demonic heart to his giant mascot. He explains the jewel will increase the lizard's level and guarantee its rank advancement. The dragon opens its huge mouth full of teeth to devour the reward. Wasting no time, the creature tosses the red crystal into the air and swallows it all at once. However, the big guy starts squirming, feeling a heavy energy invade its mind. Startled, Lu Yu tells the beast to take it easy because the item holds too many dark emotions. The lizard groans in pain while the master says eating too fast causes indigestion. Lu Yu asks for calm and states he will help his partner control that power. Then his eyes glow with blue flames, activating spiritual energy refinement. Celestial magic surrounds the lizard's body, which roars as its aura stabilizes. Lu Yu sighs in relief and announces the job is done for the beast to absorb the strength. Bathed in that power, the monster roars at the sky, showing its new divine strength. The system assistant appears floating and congratulates the host for the success. She blinks excitedly, confirming the beast absorbed the magic heart and evolved its skill. The panel reveals that the dragon's gaze now shatters souls, and its body resists physical attacks. Suddenly, a gigantic explosion of smoke sweeps the street, showing the new level achieved. In its tiny form, the dragon brags about being invincible and tells the bird to worship it. Acting like a needy puppy, it rubs its snout against the master's leg. Drooling, the little lizard says the heart was delicious and asks for another piece. Lu Yu sweats cold and wonders how the animal treated a rare treasure as a snack. Then, the young man turns his back to the beast and looks again at the mess in front of the store. Looking at the dark puddle on the floor, he grumbles about the annoying job of cleaning it all up. Lu Yu grabs his phone and calls a contact, asking for help to clean a little spot at the entrance. He says he made a tiny mess on the sidewalk, and the guy agrees to do him this favor. Sometime later, the suited group arrives and finds the asphalt full of marks. The young man sweats cold and wonders how the manager had the nerve to call that a light mess. Tianyan kneels near the puddle and notices wind marks connected to the enemy lizard. He concludes the rival family attacked and realizes Lu Yu's deadly hatred for those nobles. Looking at the store, he is impressed, imagining how the young man won everything so one-sidedly. Then Tianyan stands up and orders his guards to clean up the entire shop street. The team quickly gets the job done, leaving the storefront sidewalk spotless again. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the powerful Lu family's luxurious mansion under the sun. Tianyan walks through the courtyard as a butler warns him that the little redhead is furious. At that moment, the girl appears stumping her foot and asks if her brother lost his mind. Furious, she complains that he took all the precious resources to raise the little monster. With her hands on her hips, she says the reproduction rate was low and the plan too risky. Keeping his cool, Tian explains the green creature can generate an entire clan on its own. He says the creature's future army will be the foundation of his power when he becomes leader. Pouting, the little tamer complains he can't ignore her little ice fox. Patting her head, Tianyan says he already ordered the best items prepared for her. Soon, an elegant servant approaches carrying a luxurious briefcase with the materials. The little redhead's eyes sparkle with anticipation as she holds the heavy case. A magic light illuminates her face, and she is amazed by so many rare jewels. Drooling over the fire and ice stones, she swears she wants to be born as his sister in her next life. However, Tianyan turns serious and warns she must be careful because that is a gift for Lu Yu. The little redhead gets confused and upset hearing she has to hand over that fortune at the store. Furious, she stomps her foot saying her brother uses her as a slave and promises to tell on him to the shopkeeper. The scene returns to the humble little shop glowing under the afternoon sun. Walking with the heavy case, the young girl thinks about her brother's incredible vision of the future. She remembers those items were priceless treasures and thinks it's crazy to give it all away. Tianyan had said that without Lu Yu's help, he would be stuck at the sovereign level forever. But with the blazing chicken, he would have a chance to break his limits and become a lord. Thinking about this, the little tamer decides to build a good relationship with the shopkeeper. With a sweet smile, she pushes the door open and cheerfully announces she finally arrived. Opening the briefcase, she offers the elemental crystals as a thank you from the Luo family. Lu Yu is surprised and says he didn't even have time to say thanks for the street cleaning. The red-haired young girl smiles, saying it was no bother since his beasts improved their talents. Surprised by that, Lu Yu thinks he didn't know the store's mascots had that effect. So he states he won't turn down the gift and accepts the case with the valuable stones. The little girl waves amiably and tells him to call if he needs anything. With the oars in hand, Lu Yu observes the gifts glowing before him. Behind the counter, he assesses that the crimson firestone looked perfect for his bird. A purple light brightens the room as he summons his adorable, colorful feathered bird. Lu Yu offers the red crystal and encourages the cute little bird to eat the jewel. The small mascot takes flight happily and quickly absorbs all the item's power. Shocked, the young man notices his beast managed to level up directly. Bathed in celestial light, the bird grows and reveals its true majestic form. The assistant appears smiling and congratulates Lu Yu for advancing multiple levels. The panel shows the partner gained a red star skill with massive firepower. Flying around the store, the majestic bird proves its worth as Lu Yu notes how superior it is. The scene cuts to the large campus of the famous Tamer University in the magical city. The quiet hallways show that all students were already in their classrooms. In the auditorium, the professor announces that in her class, everyone must remember that strength reigns supreme. The beautiful dark-haired woman smiles and asks who there trusts their own strength. She asks for a brave volunteer to come up to the stage to help her with the explanation. Immediately, several boys raise their hands trying to catch the professor's attention. However, she mockingly warns that going up there means participating in a real beast battle. Then the professor points to two students in the audience and chooses them for the practical test. A blue-haired student points to herself nervously, unable to believe she was chosen. On the other side, an arrogant guy with spiky hair stands up accepting the challenge. Students whisper saying the chosen girl is one of the 4 great beauties on campus. They also mention that Yan Shapping owns a werewolf focused on brutal damage. Sweating cold, the girl in blue fears the worst since support tamers usually suffer in these tests. The pink-haired girl laughs at the situation while her friend begs for an idea to escape. Confident, the pink-haired girl says she can fight in her place if she gets some compliments. The girl in blue hugs her savior and calls her the strongest in the dorm. Confident, the young girl with pink braids touches her friend's shoulder and says she will handle it all easily. In the audience, some boys fall in love seeing the new beauty walk up to the stage. Arriving at the front, she asks the professor to let her fight in the support friend's place. With a beautiful smile, the instructor accepts the request without thinking twice. Then the professor asks the spiky-haired guy if he accepts the opponent's swap. Cracking his knuckles, the arrogant student says he will win regardless of who stands before him. The pink-haired girl raises her hand and summons a tiny, adorable blue gooey monster. The guys are shocked, thinking such a weak mascot would be crushed in seconds. Worried, the professor asks if she really wants to put that slime in the arena. The big guy crosses his arms and says in these duels, life depends solely on fate. With an intimidating look, he makes it clear he won't pay anything if her pet gets defeated. A Fang gets annoyed with the lack of respect, while a classmate points out that beauty doesn't win fights. But the blue-haired girl asks them not to underestimate the little monster. Another student retorts saying that creature has a low ceiling and decides just to watch. On stage, the pink-haired girl points her finger and says she will teach a lesson about not looking down on mascots. The show-off bursts into laughter, finding it ridiculous, and says it's not worth arguing. Next, he summons a huge, terrifying werewolf wielding 2 giant swords. The hairy beast roars fiercely, releasing a powerful red energy throughout its body. On the other side, the little goo creates rings of water around itself, showing it's also ready. Tension rises, marking the start of the clash between the rookie and the arrogant veteran. Covered in a brutal aura, the canine monster prepares to attack with all its fury. Soon the 2 beasts charge, creating an impact between the red and blue energies. The young braided girl smiles confidently, knowing exactly how to deal with that. Quickly, the small aquatic mascot activates a golden skill and creates silk threads. Even seeing the magic, the guy orders his wolf to destroy everything mercilessly. With the twin blades, the werewolf advances, slashing the air at high speed. The hairy giant leaps fiercely to finish off the enemy in a single strike. However, a magic water whip appears out of nowhere and swiftly wraps around its body. The student's jaws drop, seeing that Goo is hiding absurd skills. Stuck in mid-air, the wolf lets out a yelp as it receives an electric shock from the watery bindings. The arrogant guy smiles confidently, thinking that water trap wouldn't hold his beast for long. But in the audience, one of the guys notices something was very wrong with the wolf in the arena. Then the large canine monster suffers a severe impact from the crushing pressure of the aquatic spell. Completely exhausted, the hairy creature crashes to the floor, leaving its master in complete shock. With wide eyes, the big guy is paralyzed, unable to understand how that defeat was possible. With a beautiful smile, the young pink-haired girl asks ironically if the opponent is finally convinced. Trembling with frustration, the combatant refuses to accept being humiliated by simple goo. So the arrogant student falls to his knees on the floor while the victorious girl watches everything closely. Excited, the little pet's owner states the taming path holds infinite possibilities. She adds saying a weak mascot can even crush a giant dragon in the future. The students are shocked by that absurd plot twist and stand up agitated. The girl's biggest fan is amazed, wanting to know what resources trained that little hero. At that moment, the beautiful blue-haired student runs happily toward her best friend. She hugs her savior, celebrating wildly, and says she knew everything would work out. The pink-haired girl gives a cute little laugh and comments that challenge was like taking candy from a baby. In the back of the room, the defeated guy tries to wake his passed-out partner and catches the girl's attention. With a gentle tone, the support mage approaches, offering help to heal the werewolf. Scratching the back of his neck, the beast's owner apologizes for the trouble and thanks the classmate for her kindness. But the braided girl warns that magic is expensive and says he got a discount. With a charming face, the healer says there's no problem helping a classmate. Then she starts a powerful spell and summons a bright magic butterfly in the middle of the arena. The beautiful insect flies over the injured creature, pouring a strong purifying light over its body. Seeing the speed of the treatment, the veteran concludes that magic must be gold tier. The professor watches everything shocked and suspects that mascot possesses a legendary bloodline. She thinks that rare species of white butterfly should be extinct by now. But the student calmly explains her partner evolved from a common green bug. Surprised, the instructor deduces there's a secret master helping that talented girl. So the professor asks the blue-haired student to visit her office after class. Later in the office, the educator says beast control hides infinite paths. Hearing the compliment, the sweet student smiles happily and agrees with her mentor. The professor explains none of this would be possible without excellent cultivation behind the beasts. Sitting comfortably, she talks about an ancient civilization that mastered animal breeding and training. The braided girl is impressed and asks if something so incredible really existed. The woman explains the breeder profession allowed transforming a tiny worm into a dragon. The two students are shocked, thinking that ancient stories seemed way too exaggerated. Laughing at their reaction, the instructor recommends history classes to learn more. With hands on her hips, the pink-haired girl laments that this profession required a lot of talent and got lost. The blue-haired girl thinks for a bit and wonders if the store manager could be a true breeder. Surprised, the instructor widens her eyes and wants to know more about this mysterious shopkeeper. The friends explain they bought their evolved mascots right at the mythical beast store. The master fixes her hair and deduces that man must be the expert behind it all. Soon the scene cuts to a luxurious white car parking in front of the modest business. An elegant woman steps out of the vehicle wearing high heels and showing a lot of power. Standing on the sidewalk, the beautiful customer observes the facade, ready to uncover the mysteries of the place. Lowering her sunglasses, the professor smiles confidently, saying she finally arrived at her destination. Inside, Luyu praises majestic bird for leveling up so quickly. At that moment, the door opens and the visitor walks in asking for the store owner. Suddenly, the purple bird takes flight, releasing a powerful aura throughout the room. Bathed in that pressure, the newcomer realizes she can't move her body. Luyu quickly calms the beast and apologizes, saying it still can't control its talent. Baffled, the educator takes a deep breath, unable to understand how that pressure could just be talent. Coughing to cover it up, she introduces herself as an instructor from the Tamer University. With a gentle smile, she reaches out and deduces the young man in front of her as Luyu. The customer reveals her students highly praise the beast from that establishment. Stepping closer, she puts a hand on her chin and asks if he is a legendary animal breeder. Staring at the visitor, Luyu repeats the word breeder, showing some confusion. But then he smiles relaxed and says he can be whatever she wants to believe. In his mind, the young man observes the system and realizes the breeder title could help business. Confused by the enigmatic answer, the researcher tries to figure out what's going through his mind. Sighing, the professor crosses her arms and concludes such a valuable secret wouldn't be revealed easily. She mentions she hasn't made a contract for a fourth beast yet and asks if he has any suitable hatchling. Luyu smiles cleverly as he realizes a new business opportunity has arrived at his door. Friendly, the merchant extends his hand and asks her to explain her requirements first. The woman says she has the dragon wings talent and desires a mascot of that lineage. Surprised, Luyu asks what her relation is to the Lu family, famous for taming dragons. Hearing that, the lady lowers her head and shows a sad expression before answering. A painful memory surfaces, showing a man scolding a little girl for her low talent. The girl cries as she is called a loser while hearing that other families have true geniuses. Back in the present, the professor crosses her arms and says buying an animal doesn't require an interrogation. Lu Yu scratches the back of his neck and realizes he touched on some complicated noble family gossip. Then he grabs a small glass jar and apologizes for not having draconic lineage monsters there. However, shortly after, he smiles confidently and claims he actually has royal dragons to sell. Annoyed, the woman says that's impossible because the three great families monopolize that species. But Lu Yu summons his tiny flying partner and states his store operates with honesty. The educator goes into shock realizing that tiny beast possesses a divine lineage. Curious, the customer asks to see the merchandise while the seller shakes the jar in his hand. Staring at the glowing container, she wonders if there really is a dragon inside. A light illuminates the water and reveals the little animal kept inside was just a simple red carp. Outraged, the professor asks where the dragon was and if he caught that fish for dinner. Trembling with anger, she calls to cover it up and asks if the manager grabbed the wrong animal. Without losing his pose, Lu Yu calmly shakes the jar and states he made no mistake. Annoyed, the lady says that was just a common carp sold in city markets. But the protagonist puts a hand to his ear and asks if she knows the legend of the leaping fish. The mage remembers this legend talks about a fish leaping the great gate to become a dragon. Lu Yu smiles, praising her knowledge, and realizes it wouldn't be easy to convince someone so smart. Tired, the customer smacks her forehead and says that famous gate disappeared thousands of years ago. Then the young man points at the little fish and asks what she would think if the carp created its own gate. The woman presses her hands against her chest and is shocked, saying that idea was absurd. Being dramatic, Lu Yu turns his back, saying he doesn't force anyone to buy. Desperate, the buyer holds a small vial with both hands so as not to miss the chance. Immediately, she starts a contract spell, absorbing the carp with a bright magic glow. Feeling the energy, the professor closes her eyes, relieved to realize it was true. Amazed, the customer smiles excitedly, saying that discovery was simply incredible. Ashamed, the lady bows before Lu Yu and apologizes for being presumptuous. But with the sudden movement, her clothes tear a bit in the front, making the situation awkward. Lu Yu turns his face, blushing, and swears he couldn't see absolutely anything. Holding the torn fabric, the buyer feels awkward and asks for another small favor. Blushing hard, she asks if he can fetch spare clothes from the trunk of her car. Lu Yu runs out at top speed and promises to bring the clothes as fast as possible. While running, he imagines a reporter announcing his arrest on television. Arriving at the vehicle, the young man breathes a sigh of relief for fleeing before the situation worsened. Then he presses the alarm remote and grabs the white bag in the trunk. Wasting no time, the seller runs back down the street holding the customer's bag. A few minutes later, Lu Yu appears relaxed drinking coffee while resting in his chair. The professor emerges with a more closed blouse and thanks him for his attitude with a beautiful smile. Behind the counter, he says it was nothing and asks if she knows how to cultivate the carp. The buyer puts her hand on her chin and explains her other partners use metal, wind, and water. Then she approaches the counter, saying she wants to test a new attribute on this mascot. Determined, the educator throws small purple lightning-type crystals on the store floor. Next, she tosses the magic stones inside the aquarium where the little red fish swims. The items release an electric discharge that is immediately absorbed by the little carp. A gigantic purple aura appears in the room, revealing the legendary Dragon Gate. Lu Yu's dragon lets out a roar and releases flames from its body as it feels the portal's power. Quickly, the boy pets the little creature's head and tells it to stay quiet. The lady notices that and worriedly asks why the little monster got so agitated. Lu Yu stays calm and says everything is fine, asking her to focus on the training. Calmer, the tamer obeys and throws another magic crystal toward the great portal. Huge lightning bolts slice through the air, confirming the absurd energy of that mystic ritual. Watching everything, Lu Yu says the portal seems stable and only the carp needs to jump. Then the professor points to the aquarium and encourages her new mascot to follow its destiny. At that moment, the small red carp leaps with all its might toward the glowing gate. Bathed in energy, the little animal is enveloped by a protective water bubble. Floating slowly, the fragile mascot rises toward the top of the magic structure. Suddenly, powerful lightning bolts strike the sphere, testing the little fish's endurance. Worried, the professor notices the advance stopped and fears the evolution will fail. Then Lu Yu explains the portal needs the master's help, and she activates her dragon wings. Surprised by the revealed ability, the young man smiles, realizing he underestimated her potential. With a blue light on her chest, the tamer transfers her power, rooting for the mascot's success. Receiving extra energy, the Grand Arch reacts and shines intensely to help the crossing. Spinning at high speed, the carp absorbs the magic and creates a luminous tornado. Pushing the spell with her hands, the customer orders the partner to cross the barrier. With a final push, the little fish crosses the limit as majestic wings sprout on its body. Bathed in celestial light, the little animal completes the jump and becomes an entirely new being. Feeling a golden aura on her body, the woman realizes her talent is also evolving. Lu Yu explains the beast's successful transformation also elevates the tamer's strength. Hearing this, the buyer widens her eyes, shocked by that sudden gain of power. Soon, large orange wings appear on the young woman's back while she floats around the store. High up, the carp takes the form of a flood dragon with crimson lightning. The professor shows off the great monster that just reached transcendent rank 6. Even with so much strength, she comments the beast still doesn't belong to the main dragon lineage. Liu smiles gently and confirms his store operates with total honesty. He explains the draconic race has branches like giant lizards and flood serpents. The young man reinforces that upon reaching the Overlord class, the mascot will become a true species. Excited about the profit, Liu charges 5 million for the service and asks for the payment method. Without hesitating, the educator brings the card near the machine before he changes his mind. As soon as the woman leaves, Liu announces his partner can come out of hiding. The little flaming dragon appears with a cute roar, showing it is also about to evolve. The mascot received great enlightenment by absorbing the essence of the portal's legendary dragons. With a determined look, the creature lets him know it is ready to reach the next level. Reading the system panel, Liu sees his beast leveled up and gained divine attributes. Observing the floating information, the young man smiles, satisfied with his mascot's progress. The scene cuts to a luxurious mansion bathed in moonlight during the night. Lying on the couch, the professor sighs enchanted, thinking her purchase seemed like a dream. But loud knocks sound on the door, making the young woman curious about who it could be at that hour. Opening the entrance, she is surprised to see her former master standing before her. With a gentle smile, the gray-haired gentleman apologizes in case he interrupted her rest. The educator says it wasn't a bother and invites the respected mentor inside. In the living room, the veteran asks how the talented girl's first day of class went. Excitedly, she claps her hands together and says she discovered 2 genius students. Intrigued, the man strokes his chin, interested in hearing more about those prodigies. The professor reveals the freshmen made contracts with beasts of special growth. The elder is shocked by the absurd level of those freshmen's mascots. Then he deduces that tamers like that could become governors or pillars of the country. Smiling, the young woman says she also bought a carp at the store and it evolved to sovereign potential. Hearing this, the veteran is nearly speechless in the face of such absurdity. Flustered, he holds his pupil's shoulders and asks her to summon the rare creature. Answering the request, the lady summons her majestic flood dragon covered in lightning. The reddish monster hovers in the room, releasing a fiery and intimidating aura. Admiring it, the old man says that legendary species had disappeared a long time ago. Then the master connects the dots and asks if all those partners came from the same place. The professor confirms and believes the seller isn't looking for money but rather to create super geniuses. The old man scratches his beard, realizing that manager's plans might be much deeper. The lady looks at the beast and asks if the mentor thinks it's possible for a max-level tamer to emerge. Sighing, the wise man answers that currently there is no one with such overwhelming power. He cites a legend saying the ancient civilization was destroyed by a being of that level. Seriously, he evaluates that a new supreme genius could be a blessing or a disaster. Tense, the young woman starts sweating cold, wondering if she should tell all of Liu's secrets. She fears that if the leader treats the boy as a threat, the consequences will be unimaginable. To avoid conflict, the lady suggests sending trusted young people to buy more animals at the store. Smiling a bit, she concludes this keeps a good relationship and also serves as an investigation. Agreeing with the idea, the gray-haired master decides to follow his student's plan exactly. The next day, the scene shows the quiet facade of the mythical beast store early in the morning. Inside, Liu reads a system notice about rewards for buying his first real estate. Smiling widely, he grabs his phone and sees he has enough money for it. Wasting no time, the shopkeeper calls the owner of the place, offering 17 million for the property. On the other end of the line, the owner thinks the value is low and says he will negotiate in person. Liu tries to argue, saying he researched the market and made an offer above the price. But the greedy owner realizes the boy is interested and plans to squeeze more money out of him. Arrogantly, the old man tells Liu to stop talking nonsense and wait for his arrival. After hanging up the call, the merchant sighs, annoyed at that guy's greed.